How many people did you kill?
Not people.
You crazy son of a bitch!
They Live was never merely another B-movie thrown into the crowded pile of 1980 science fiction. For John Carpenter, its director, the film was not a simple exercise in genre fun, but a furious outcry. His loudest, rawest scream against the decade's shimmering illusions, hollow consumers' promises, and political hypocrisy. At first glance, it may have seemed like nothing more than a pulpy rebellion disguised in schlocky spectacle, a wandering drifter, a mysterious pair of sunglasses, aliens hiding in plain sight while posing as human elites, and billboards secretly coded with sinister commands. Yet beneath the one-liners, the skeletal alien faces, and the grindhouse aesthetics that painted the film with midnight movie energy, there was something darker, carefully constructed chaos in every frame. The film was born from pulp storytelling and comic book roots, stitched together with political fury and defiance, and carried into cult immortality not by Hollywood A-listers, but by an unpolished wrestler with no formal acting background, paired with a filmmaker who was unwilling to conform or play safe. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Star Vault TV, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. The origins of They Live didn't lie in Hollywood's glossy machine at all, but in literature. In 1963, writer Ray Nelson created a short story titled 8 o'clock in the morning, built on a premise so stark it was terrifying. A man wakes up to discover that the familiar world around him is a facade, manipulated and controlled by alien overlords disguised as ordinary humans. Everyday life, the advertisements, the smiling faces of power, the rhythm of society itself, was nothing more than a series of elaborate masks concealing domination. Nelson's story ended on a note that was chilling in its futility, carrying a bleak, Kafkaesque inevitability. The revelation came too late, and the control had already grown too strong. Nelson later revisited his own work, transforming it into a comic book titled Nada, after its drifter protagonist. 2 decades later, Carpenter encountered the story and recognized in it more than just another science-fictional tale of alien infiltration. What Carpenter saw reflected was America itself, lulled into hypnosis by television, suffocated by consumerism, and ruled by elites who grew fatter and richer while the working class slipped further into shadows. He merged Nelson's paranoid vision with his own political anger, and from that collision of ideas emerged a tale in which a cheap pair of sunglasses could obliterate the veil of illusion, revealing that glamorous billboards were in fact blunt black and white orders like obey and consume, while the smiling faces of the powerful became grotesque skeletal masks. What had begun as a small pulp story evolved into one of the most uncompromising social commentaries ever smuggled into the shape of a B-movie. Even before filming began, Carpenter executed a trick worthy of his story's themes. When the movie finally appeared in theaters, audiences noticed that the screenplay wasn't attributed to him. Instead, the credit went to a mysterious writer named Frank Armitage. Curious fans and journalists scoured credits and industry records, trying to identify this supposed new talent, only to find that no such person existed. Carpenter had borrowed the name from a character in H.P. Lovecraft's works, a playful nod to his lifelong admiration for cosmic horror. But it was more than homage. It was a shield. Carpenter knew he was unleashing something heavier than a popcorn flick. By disguising his authorship, he allowed the film's raw political message to ring louder than his own celebrity. In a movie obsessed with deception and revelation, the trick was perfectly fitting. The director of Halloween and the thing hiding behind his own constructed mask so the story could take center stage. The casting of the lead role was itself an act of rebellion. Carpenter initially considered his frequent collaborator Kurt Russell for Nada. Having already worked together on Escape from New York, The Thing, and Big Trouble in Little China, their creative partnership had delivered modern classics. But Carpenter worried that casting Russell again would break the illusion. The audience would see Russell the movie star, not the nameless drifter embodying the desperation and grit of the working class. Carpenter wanted someone unfamiliar, raw, and unrefined, someone whose very presence suggested an outsider. The surprising inspiration came from the spectacle of WrestleMania 3, where Carpenter watched Rowdy Roddy Piper unleash his charisma and toughness in the ring. In Piper, Carpenter saw exactly what he needed, not polish but authenticity. Piper himself was stunned when the legendary filmmaker approached him with an offer to lead a feature film, having never even considered acting as a career. The risk paid off. Piper's natural roughness gave Nada a lived-in authenticity. He was not a polished Hollywood hero. He was a man hardened by wandering, marked by hardship, and out of place in every environment. Carpenter wanted a stranger to lead his cinematic revolt, and he found one where no one expected, the world of professional wrestling. Across from Piper, Carpenter cast Keith David, who at the time had grown frustrated with constantly being typecast as the expendable supporting character, the sidekick, the secondary friend, the background presence beside more celebrated stars. Carpenter promised David a role with substance. Frank would be a man defined by his own family, his own responsibilities, his own moral code. Most importantly, he would be an equal to Nada, not a mere accessory. To sweeten the role, Carpenter offered him something unforgettable, one of cinema's greatest fight sequences. For David, this was irresistible. His grounded, smoldering presence became the perfect counterbalance to Piper's raw energy. Their on-screen partnership thrummed with both tension and respect, turning what could have been a simple side character into the emotional center of the film. Without David, Nada might have been reduced to just another drifter with a pair of sunglasses. With him, the story became a true revolution of two men. Carpenter's limited $3 million budget forced a certain scrappy ingenuity, but it also resulted in unexpected ironies. One might assume that the otherworldly alien cityscapes or the hypnotic black and white subliminal billboards would have eaten up the most funds. In reality, the costliest sequence to film was far more mundane, a grocery store. Carpenter transformed the location into a layered illusion, filling it with prosthetic aliens, background actors, props, and dolly shots. Every single detail needed to be staged twice, once in the normal world, and again through the stark black and white filter of Nada's glasses. Every shelf, every cereal box, every small piece of signage had to be redesigned to deliver subliminal commands. Add in the elaborate alien masks, the cost of reshoots, and the presence of extras, and the grocery store quickly became the film's most expensive illusion. And then there was the fight, the legendary 6-minute brawl in a back alley that has since become one of the most famous cinematic battles ever committed to film. On the script page, Carpenter had written nothing more than, "The fight continues." To bring it to life, he enlisted stunt coordinator Jeff Imada, who set up rehearsal space outside Carpenter's office. Piper and David trained for weeks, running through every slam, chokehold, and body drop with one rule in place. Everything was fair game except shots to the face. Piper contributed wrestling maneuvers from his own arsenal, while David injected raw physicality and grit. By the time the cameras rolled, their combat was punishingly real. Trash cans clattered, car hoods bent, and brick walls absorbed blow after blow as the two actors hurled themselves into chaos. The result was 6 minutes of relentless brutality, exhausting, ugly, and impossible to look away from. Carpenter never once considered cutting it down. That fight, he declared, was the soul of the film. A prolonged, bloody battle over nothing more than a pair of sunglasses, a metaphor for the struggle to wake up and see the truth. Without access to lavish studio sets, Carpenter filmed most of They Live guerrilla style on the streets of Los Angeles. Nada's wanderings through alleys, his encounters with shantytowns, his distant stares at skyscrapers, all of it unfolded in real locations. Many of the passers-by were not actors at all, but real people responding naturally to Piper in character. The authenticity bled through the lens. The encampment of homeless drifters that played such a key role in the film was no set, but an actual camp. Carpenter hired real residents as extras, paying them to appear in the movie, grounding the story in lived reality. For him, this was not incidental, it was central to the film's core. They Live was not merely a story about aliens and masks, but a parable about poverty, exploitation, and a society's refusal to look at the marginalized. The music, composed by Carpenter with Alan Howarth, was created not through grand orchestral writing, but through improvisation in the studio. Watching footage of Nada trudging along railway tracks, Carpenter tapped out a pulsing bass rhythm, layering it with twangy blues guitar to capture the drifter's weary journey, and then added eerie synthesizer textures like the sinister hum of hidden machinery. Even the unsettling alien broadcast of sleep commands came from Carpenter.